Hi, I'm Jeanette Roche. This is Bridge City News. Here are some of the top stories we have lined up for you tonight. Parks Canada and RCMP continue to respond to a rock slide in Banff National Park after a second body is recovered. Plus, Bill C-5, known as the One Canadian Economy Act, is passed in the Commons before the summer break. And Ottawa helps Canadians leave the Middle East as tensions rise between Iran and Israel.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Jeanette Roche.
Thanks so much for joining us. 2 people are confirmed to have died Thursday in a rock slide in Banff National Park. This video from Facebook shows rocks tumbling down at Bow Glacier Falls near Bow Lake. That's about 37 kilometers north of Lake Louise in Banff National Park. Rescue crews rushed to the scene and found 1 victim deceased, and when searching resumed Friday morning, the body of a second person was found. RCMP have identified one of the victims as Judah Heinrich, a 70-year-old retired occupational therapist from Calgary. A second deceased individual was recovered when the search resumed Friday morning. RCMP say 3 people were transported to hospital by STARS and ground ambulance Thursday, and they were all in stable condition at last report. Parks Canada says at this time no one else is reported missing, and there are no additional unidentified vehicles at the trailhead located at Bow Lake. Parks Canada visitor safety teams continue work today with support from geotechnical engineers to ensure trails are safe. Bow Lake and the trail to Bow Hut have reopened. Park officials say there could also be short-term traffic stoppages on the Icefields Parkway in the vicinity of the incident. The Liberal government's major projects and internal trade bill was voted on today and passed before the House of Commons rose for its summer break. The House Speaker ruled Bill C-5 had 2 distinct parts, which were voted on separately. The One Canadian Economy Act contains measures to tackle internal trade barriers and also gives the government new powers to approve major projects like mines, ports, and pipelines. The bill sailed through committee yesterday with support from the Conservatives, but it has faced criticism from Indigenous and environmental groups as well as some opposition MPs and senators. Iran's foreign minister says Israel has imposed an unjust war on its people by launching attacks on its nuclear facilities. Abbas Araghchi addressed the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva on Friday ahead of a meeting with top European diplomats.
Israel has launched an unprovoked aggression on Iran in a stark violation of Article 2, Paragraph 4 of the Charter, and in bold defiance of all the principles and rules that this Council stands for. Our peaceful nuclear facilities have also been targeted, despite their being under full monitoring of IAEA, and despite the fact that attacking such facilities are absolutely banned under international law. Israeli attacks on nuclear facilities are grave war crimes, given also the danger of environmental and health catastrophe as the result of radiological leakage.
Araghchi says any justification of these criminal acts is tantamount to complicity, but speaking to reporters afterward, he did say that Iran would be open to diplomacy once hostilities end. Meanwhile, Ottawa is helping Canadians leave the Middle East once they reach countries bordering Israel and Iran. It has stationed consular office officials on the other side of certain crossings on the Israeli and Iranian borders to help those fleeing either country to get home, since airports are closed across the region. Well, in other news, summer is here, which means kids will be home for the holidays, allowing them to spend even more time in front of their electronic devices. Due to the growing trend of child sexual abuse material, particularly material created with artificial intelligence, Alert is sending a gentle but important reminder to parents. Heather Bangle from Alert's Internet Child Exploitation Unit says in 2024, Canada prosecuted nearly 4,000 sexually explicit deepfake images and videos of children and young people.
With the internet, right, any child is at risk of this. It can be a child in Lethbridge or anywhere in Canada or around the world. We are getting calls where there's lots of calling it nudify apps. That's where you can take a photo and alter it so that you remove the clothes or nudify the person in the photo that you're using. We've actually had files where a child will take school sports photos or pictures off of social media and then nudify these images using AI. But we also have adults that are just as capable and have been either creating it from nothing, so it's not an actual child being depicted in the image, or taking images that they have found online. I really truly believe that education and awareness is how we're going to best protect these kids.
Bengal says 1 in 10 children says that they've known someone whose image has been deep faked. Lethbridge Fire and Emergency Services is trying to pinpoint the cause of an early morning fire on the south side of the city. At about 3:20 this morning, fire crews from 4 stations responded to a call of a third-floor living room fire in a building in the 3200 block of 20th Avenue South. A resident of the building who took the following video right there told BCN at least all residents on the 3rd floor were evacuated. Some had to be rescued by aerial apparatus from their balconies due to heavy smoke in the hallways. No injuries have been reported. However, 10 residents have been displaced due to the fire and smoke damage. The cause of the fire remains under investigation and damage is estimated at $500,000. The Canadian Red Cross and the City of Lethbridge are assisting those who are currently affected. The police cadet program at the Lethbridge Polytechnic honored their latest class of cadets in a graduating ceremony today to receive their academic certifications and badges. 10 cadets are exiting the 23-week program that ensures newly hired officers will be exceptionally trained in hard and soft skills, from firearms use to interpersonal communication and ethical accountability. The latest class includes 8 cadets with the Lethbridge Police Service, 1 cadet with Tabor, and 1 with the Canadian Pacific Kansas City Police Service.
It's really exciting. We've put a lot of work in as a class and as a group together to get to this point, supporting each other. We've really built a good connection with all of us in the class, all 10 of us. And it's really exciting. You can just see the camaraderie in the classroom and the excitement just kind of bubble up from everybody. We're all excited for the next stage of training, which is our FTO period on the streets, serving the community, working in the community itself, and being involved in that role.
We did a lot. We did things all the way from law on one side all the way to shooting on the other side, driving, a bunch of stuff. It was all an accumulation of things that are obviously necessary for a police officer to know. That being said, it flew by. So clearly we were having fun. The whole experience was fantastic, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat.
This is one of the only accredited police training programs available. We are accredited through the Ministry of Advanced Education and the Solicitor General. This was an exceptional group of officers, of cadets who are now officers, just got sworn in today. Very engaged, very motivated, very professional. We had a lot of fun. They were easy to work with. They're going to be amazing out on the road.
The Polytechnic's Police Cadet Program provides training for additional services, including the Blood Tribe, Manitoba First Nations, the Canadian National Railway, and the recently established Grand Prairie Police Service. When we think of farming, we think of big pieces of machinery working in the fields, but smaller digital technology is playing an increasing role. For the second year in a row, a digital field day was held today, showcasing how digital agriculture plays an important and realistic role in agricultural fields. Keshav Singh, research scientist, Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, explains more.
So we are talking about the field agronomy, crop breeding, how these different novel tools coming from AI-based tools in terms of like UAVs, unmanned air vehicles. On those terms, we try the different sensing system on the ground. So right now, one of the trial is about nitrogen efficiency. We want to track the optimized use of the nitrogen, which is helpful for the farmers to get variable nitrogen uses on the ground.
So part of the nitrogen fertilization happens with seeding, and then the other part happens in crop. And the idea is that through split applications, what we can do is put part of it down at seeding, and then based on the conditions that we've experienced throughout the growing season, we can optimize how much nitrogen is being applied through that second application in crop. And the idea is that it helps to reduce the amount of nitrogen that's being lost to the environment. Reducing nitrogen emissions from fertilization is a really big priority when it comes to agricultural sustainability, because losses of that nitrogen to the environment can result in greenhouse gas emissions, which are a contributing factor in climate change. We're using remote sensing and smart sensor technologies to help contribute to reducing those nitrogen losses.
Canada has been an outstanding country when it comes to tech in agriculture. So we have come to look at what they do here, and they reapply in our place.
More and more farming is being done with research based on the analysis of data. Singh says automated ground robots, aerial sensors, drones, and data processing technology are part of this new digital transformation in agriculture. Lethbridge might one day be the home of a new professional sports franchise. The Women's Football Alliance is looking to expand into Canada and is working on a collaboration with Cosmos Sports and Entertainment based in Ontario. The WFA is the largest women's tackle football league in the world, operating on an 11-on-11 format with teams based in major cities like Houston, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, and St. Louis. The president of Cosmos says Lethbridge and other cities based in the Canadian prairies would be great matches if owners would be willing to bring a franchise home.
You're in the heart of football country in Canada. So the prairies for us is where we start. And that can be Winnipeg and Regina, but it can also be Lethbridge and Red Deer and Brandon and other cities that have, a significant population and a history of loving football. If we have an owner that's a champion in Lethbridge, then I think Lethbridge is a logical location. If that owner happens to come from Saskatoon, I think we would gravitate towards Saskatoon. So there are, a number of cities that we earmarked as great potential locations, Lethbridge included. But the step now is owners that take women's tackle football seriously and want to be a part of it. Well, women's sports is rising. It's meteoric. The way women's soccer, women's basketball's growth, women's hockey, and U.S. football. Canadians follow the NFL. They follow the CFL, but they also follow the NFL. So I think there would be no gap for U.S. rules, tackle football, and the WFA basically follows NFL rules.
The long-term goal is to have 6 teams in Canada which would play in a Canadian division. The WFA operates in 3 levels, from Pro Division 2 and Division 3, with a total of 60 active teams. Sounds fun. With National Indigenous Peoples Day celebrations taking place across Canada on Saturday, the city of Lethbridge has moved their event from Galt Gardens to the Lethbridge and District Exhibition due to inclement weather. Despite the last-minute change, the city says the reception and anticipation from the community has increased excitement. Indigenous Relations Specialist Echo Noack says this is the second year Lethbridge is hosting a large event for the occasion, and it shows with an increase of 20 to 30 vendors from last year.
It's been amazing. We have been bombarded with phone calls and emails and our social media of what's going on, what's happening. So we're really excited to have the whole community come in and learn more about our culture, take part of our culture, and celebrate. I think National Indigenous Peoples Day is really, it's a day for Indigenous people. It's not shared with anybody. It's not taking part in another. So it's really focused on celebrating who we are. I think a lot of the times Indigenous culture or heritage or Indigenous, the story is always impacted through like reconciliation or our past. So I like to think of National Indigenous Peoples Day as a day to celebrate and honor and just be us. So that's what I like about it.
The event begins at noon Saturday, commemorated by a community feast, and it runs until 7 p.m. at the Agri-Food Hub and Trade Center. The City of Lethbridge and the Aboriginal Housing Society have officially opened a multi-family housing complex in the northwest corner of the city. Buffalo Lodge is located on a 5-acre property on Stafford Drive North. It features 132 new housing units, half of which will be held at affordable rates for at least 20 years. Melissa Manyfingers, Vice President of the Aboriginal Housing Society, says this project helps meet the housing needs of the Indigenous community.
Out of the 132 units we have, we only have 22 left that are available. We did a transitional move-in. It wasn't ideal because most projects like this wait till they're fully completed. The need was urgent, the need was there. So we had to decide, okay, this is what it's for. Let's open it up and figure out a way. Home is where you belong. Home is where you're safe. Home is your security, and being able to provide the space for them as well as the additional resources like the cultural center, the parkway in the front. It allows them that space, to be with one another, to feel safe and to feel like they belong. Our identity is our culture, and our culture is embedded in our ways of life. And by providing in Atoyas, we provide the people the space to thrive in.
The complex was built with the help of $1.8 million in funding from the City of Lethbridge. The Lethbridge Interfaith Food Bank is putting out an urgent call for help. It's in desperate need of fresh fruits, vegetables, and dairy, and can't wait for the garden produce to start coming in. If you can grab some extras and drop by with a donation, the food bank would be so grateful. It's located at 1103 3rd Avenue North. It's the first day of summer, but it sure doesn't look like it in this region of the country. A special weather statement is in effect for Lethbridge and the surrounding area. Heavy rain of amounts of up to 100 millimeters and strong winds are expected and will continue into the weekend. The city is reminding residents to make sure downspouts and eaves troughs are clear of debris and make sure those downspouts are pointed away from your foundation. Also, make sure any rain barrels with overflow valves are directed away from your home's foundation. If you have storm drains that are plugged and needed to be cleared, please call 311. The city will have crews on standby for urgent responses on Saturday and Sunday. Also, if you have a sump pump in your basement, make sure it's functioning properly. You're also reminded to stay away from all storm ponds and flooded areas during rain events, especially heavy downpours where the water levels may change rapidly. Coming up right after the break, I will be back with the full 7-day and national forecast. A special weather statement in effect as periods of rain began today and will continue through the weekend. We received 5 to 10 millimeters today, and tonight another 10 to 15, but we could see 40 to 50 millimeters of rainfall in some areas and even up to 80 to 100 millimeters of rain. The heaviest rainfall expected to actually fall Saturday evening. Saturday also looking at a 60% chance of winds and only 12 degrees for the high there. So that's not exactly a typically nice Saturday in June. So anyone planning an outdoor wedding, I am so sorry. Hopefully nobody is, though. Sunday, we are seeing a 40% chance of showers, so things starting to clear up there by Sunday, but back up to 14. So still a little bit in that average range for this time of year. And then as we get into Monday, 16, and then finally back up to the 20s as we get into Tuesday with mainly sunny skies, high 22, and then a lovely 27 degrees for both Wednesday and Thursday to round out that 7-day forecast with a mix of sun and clouds. So yeah, that's what we're dealing with for this weekend. Lots and lots of rain, but you know what? The farmers and ranchers are going to love it. Average high for this time of year, 23. Average low, 9 degrees. 33 was the record high on this day. That happened back in 1988. And in 1978 was the record low, which was only 3 degrees. Sun rose this morning at 5:23. Sunset at 9:42. Guess what? Today is the summer solstice. That means the first day of summer, although it doesn't look like it out there today or feel like it for that matter, but it means it's the longest day of the year roundabout because it was 16 hours, 19 minutes of daylight. Same thing as yesterday. So it's that time of year where we're gonna have several days in a row that are the exact same time. So there you have it. We got a rainy country, actually. So Victoria seeing a rainfall and then a mix of sun and cloud by the afternoon, 17 for the high there. Same thing in Vancouver, high of 17 degrees. Seeing 5 to 10 millimeters there in Vancouver. Edmonton, we're going to see partly cloudy and then mainly cloudy skies, high of 17, 20 to 40 winds expected. In Calgary, 20 to 30 millimeters of rain. So we are getting tons of rain down here in southern Alberta as we move to the rest of the prairies. Also some rainfall. So both Saskatoon and Regina seeing a 60% chance of showers. Plus we could see possibly some thunderstorms, 15 for the high in Saskatoon, 20 expected in Regina, high of 27 in Winnipeg. Winnipeg also seeing a 40%, or rather a 60% chance of showers. Could see some thunderstorms there. As we move on into Toronto, 40% chance of showers, risk of thunderstorms there as well, high of 28 degrees, 27 for the high in Ottawa. Could see some showers and thunderstorms, but mainly sunny skies is what's expected tomorrow there in Montreal, high of 26 degrees. Looking to the Maritimes over on the east coast there, the eastern seaboard. Fredericton seeing a lovely 25 and sunshine. Clear skies also expected in Halifax, with a high of 24, 21 expected in Charlottetown with lovely sunny skies. And then could see a slight chance of showers or drizzle in St. John's with 30 to 50 kilometer per hour winds there and a high of 20 degrees. So there you have it. That is your forecast. A WestJet cyber attack is still unresolved 1 week in. The country's second largest airline is working to assess whether sensitive data or customers' personal information was compromised after hackers accessed its internal systems. It says the attack has not affected operations, but that some customers may run into some interruptions or errors on WestJet's website and app. The breach arrived just ahead of foreign leaders who gathered last weekend for the G7 summit in Kananaskis, Alberta, though no direct link to the event has been identified. Thousands of daily parcels deliveries have been halted across the country. DHL Express Canada shut down operations early this morning amid a strike and lockout involving 2,100 truck drivers and other workers. The work stoppage comes the same day that legislation banning replacement workers takes effect. DHL has tied the shutdown to stalled negotiations with Unifor, as well as the revised rules, which bar new hires from filling the roles of federally regulated employees who are on strike or locked out. Via Rail and Unifor have averted a strike by workers after reaching a tentative agreement. The 2,400 Via Rail workers across the country had voted for a strike mandate to be exercised as early as Sunday. Unifor says the tentative agreement offers gains in wages, job security, and working conditions. The union represents workers at Via Rail stations, maintenance centers, the customer care center, in administrative offices and on board trains. Now here is a look at today's markets.
The TSX today was down 8 points to 26,497. The Dow was up 35 points to 42,206. The S&P 500 was down 13 points to 5,967, and the Nasdaq was down 98 points to 19,447. West Texas Intermediate oil was down 21 cents to $74.93 US per barrel. Natural gas was down 14 cents to $3.84 US. Gold was down $21.70 to $3,350 US an ounce, and silver was down 89 cents to $35.97 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $8.79 per bushel, barley is at $6.85, canola is an even $17, and corn is $7.67 per bushel. Live cattle June contract was down $1.27 to $223.02. Feeder cattle August contract was down $1.72 to $302.45, and lean hogs July contract was up 60 cents to $112.77. And the Canadian dollar was down slightly over the past 24 hours and currently sits at 72.80 cents US.
Recapping one of our top stories, the death toll from Thursday's rockslide in Banff National Park stands at 2. One of the victims has been identified as retired university educator Judah Henrich. She retired last summer from the Faculty of Rehabilitation Medicine at the University of Alberta. The second body was found Friday morning. No name has been released. Under the current leadership, Iran is a significant threat to Israel, which has caused the small country to make preemptive strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities. How should Canada and the rest of the world respond, though? Noah Shak, interim president of the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs, joins us to share his thoughts. That is coming up next. Also, when you see news happening in your community, be sure to send us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. You can also visit our website or YouTube channel anytime to check out more of our stories and interviews.
This week in the Middle East, Israel made what it called preemptive and defensive attacks on Iran's nuclear facilities. The nation of Iran, under its current leadership, is viewed globally as a threat to peace and security as it continues to pursue the development of nuclear weapons. So the question is, how should Canada and the rest of the world be responding to this? Joining us to discuss is Noah Shak. He's the interim president of the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs. Noah, good to have you with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So the Middle East conflict, certainly a topic of discussion at the G7 here in Alberta this week. U.S. President Trump leaving early to deal with that crisis. Leaders sent out a communique saying that Israel has the right to defend itself and that Iran should not have a nuclear weapon. And although they urged de-escalation, they did not call for a ceasefire. What do you think of the statement? And is there anything you maybe think should have been in it?
So I don't think that they called for de-escalation in the statement itself. And I think it was a positive step that they came out with a comment of solidarity in support of Israel's right to self-defense and identifying Iran as the primary mover of instability and danger, frankly, in the region that needs to be addressed. I think the remarks made by the German chancellor later on in the summit were quite illuminating, where he indicated that very bluntly that Israel's doing the world's dirty work right now. The fact of the matter is that we have a theocratic government in Iran that has been seeking nuclear weapons for decades, and given its record of state repression, threats to wipe Israel off the face of the earth, and to spread terrorism all throughout the world, with Canada listing Iran as a state supporter of terrorism. It's absolutely imperative that democratic countries stand shoulder to shoulder in opposing that threat.
President Trump has certainly done some saber rattling, serious saber rattling, using language that has the world speculating that the U.S. could get directly involved in possibly helping Israel attack nuclear sites in Iran. Would that be prudent, or would that just inflame tensions, do you think?
A world in which Iran does not have access to nuclear weapons is a safer world for everyone. The Iranian regime has repeatedly called for Israel to be wiped off the map while pursuing the means to effect that outcome. And it's absolutely mission critical that we don't allow a regime that brutalizes its own people and has been responsible for some of the worst terrorist atrocities in the world to be in possession of a nuclear weapon. It's not just about Israel. The downing of a Ukrainian airliner on which 55 Canadians were killed was ruled by a Canadian court to be a deliberate act of terrorism by the Iranian regime. This is a regime that has deliberately targeted a former Canadian Justice Minister, Irwin Cotler, with an assassination plot. This is a regime that is at the root of regional and global instability, and we need to have a decisive outcome from this operation. It's absolutely imperative that Iran emerges from this no longer able to threaten its people, no longer able to threaten Israel, the broader region, and indeed the world.
Historically, Canada has generally expressed great support for the nation of Israel. Mark Carney's only been Prime Minister for a short time, but what are your thoughts on his leadership on this issue, and And maybe more importantly, where's Canada's relationship with Israel right now, and what needs to change maybe?
Well, this is a pivotal moment for the Prime Minister and the Government of Canada. The Canadian governments have long stood against the Iranian regime on the nuclear file, on the extent to which the Iranians have pursued ballistic missile technology in order to target the region and even Europeans, and across the board on its various human rights abuses, the abuse of women domestically, the targeting of dissidents abroad with violence and threats of murder. This is an opportunity for Canada to rise to the occasion and be a leading voice in standing against the threat of nuclear Iran. And I think this is going to be a defining moment for the Prime Minister and the government.
How concerned are you, though, about a recent vote in the UN that Canada voted, I guess you could say, against Israel? Maybe explain the vote and your concerns there.
Well, the United Nations is intended to be a forum where the disagreements and conflicts in the world can be addressed in a peaceful way. Unfortunately, it's become a highly politicized body where dozens of Arab and Muslim countries drive a specific agenda to single out Israel for condemnation, vastly disproportionate to any other UN business. And this undermines the ability of the UN to actually do the good work that it was intended to do. It undermines its ability and its credibility. And so it's essential for Canada to recognize this and to stand on principle. I think you heard articulated by our ambassador in the UN a number of reasons in his speech around voting why Canada should not have voted in favor of this resolution. But unfortunately, our government did vote in favor of it, following the herd rather than leading the charge to strengthen the United Nations to live up to its founding principles.
And what was that resolution? Just in the short version.
It was focused on the conflict in Gaza, but failed to articulate the responsibility of Hamas for starting that war with the October 7th attacks and demanding that Hamas be disarmed and removed from power, and of course for the hostages to come home as part of that, in order as a pretext, as a prerequisite for resolving the conflict.
We certainly seem to be seeing an increase in anti-Israeli sentiment in Canada. I noticed that CUPE Ontario is planning a hands-off Iran rally, despite nations around the world clearly stating for many years that Iran is a global sponsor of terrorism. So your thoughts on a rally like that?
Well, you're absolutely right. Iran is a global sponsor of terrorism. They have an atrocious record of abuse of women and other groups. Religious minorities in Iran face horrific discrimination and persecution. This, for a Canadian Union to mobilize in support of a regime like that, is mind-boggling. And I can only imagine what members of CUPE are thinking, seeing their leadership hijack their union, and instead of advocating for the rights of their members, advocating for the benefit of a brutal theocracy that is hell-bent on acquiring nuclear weapons and exporting terrorism around the world, a regime that's responsible for the murder of 55 Canadians and the targeting of one of our former justice ministers with an assassination plot. If those are the values of a Canadian union, I imagine that union members are scratching their heads and should be demanding a change in their leadership.
What would you say to those who support Iran and who say or claim that there's not evidence that Iran is close to having a nuclear weapon or having nuclear capability?
Well, I would direct them to the International Atomic Energy Agency, the UN's nuclear watchdog, which just last week declared that Iran was in breach of the Non-Proliferation Treaty and that their nuclear program did not serve civilian needs, and that what was Iran's response to that? To double down and say that they were going to expand their nuclear enrichment activities further. I'd also point to the fact that I can only think of one reason why a country would bury its nuclear enrichment facilities inside a mountain. That, coupled with all of the different evidence that the IAEA has uncovered over the last 2 decades clearly points to a regime that is building towards nuclear weapons and an imminent threat. According to the Israelis, Iran was on the cusp of being able to build 9 nuclear warheads. Seeing the devastation that conventional missiles are having on cities like Tel Aviv right now, imagining what a nuclear warhead would result in is just catastrophic. And this from a regime that has referred to Israel as a one-bomb country in articulating its desire to wipe the Jewish state off the map. So I don't think that there's any credibility to anyone who says that the Iranians are pursuing a peaceful nuclear program. The UN's own watchdog says that they're not.
If Iran were able to develop nuclear capability, which nations do you think they would use it against, and when do you think that could happen?
Well, when the Israelis have learned time and again that if somebody threatens that they're going to take action and attack you, you better believe them because it happens. So when Iran, a radical theocratic regime, threatens to annihilate the people of Israel with a nuclear attack, you better believe that that's their intention. The other aspect to this is also the fact that a nuclear weapon would give Iran even more license to wreak havoc all around the world through its terrorist activities and its terrorist proxies like Hamas and Hezbollah. Let's not forget that the reason there's a war in the Middle East to begin with is because of the Iranian-sponsored terrorist organizations that attacked Israel on October 7th and then followed up with attacks from Lebanon as well. So Iran is at the root of global instability right now. Even looking further afield beyond the Middle East, it's Iranian suicide drones that are killing Ukrainians in the Russian war on Ukraine. So I think if we look at it that way, a nuclear umbrella would only embolden Iran to target even more and to be even more destructive on the global stage. So there's a threat to Israelis, but really there's a threat to all of us.
Noah, appreciate your time today. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Noah Shack is the interim president of the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs.
This week, the Alberta government made headlines with the announcement that a number of books containing graphic sexual content were discovered in public schools, which were available to students from kindergarten age and upwards. So why are these books in our school libraries, and where do we go from here? Joining us to discuss this is Jeff Park. He is the Executive Director of the Alberta Parents Union. Jeff, it's great to have you with us today.
Thanks so much for having me, Naveen.
So Jeff, can you just tell us a little bit about what your organization is all about?
Yeah, the Alberta Parents Union is a group of grassroots parents who, starting just in May 12th of 2022, we're a relatively new organization, felt that the loudest groups that claimed to be speaking for parents were not up to the task, and we weren't feeling heard, especially groups like the Alberta School Councils Association, which increasingly sounded more like a teacher organization, teacher union organization, especially than a parent organization. And so we felt at that time that it was time to raise our voices and make our voices heard, both on the provincial level and at the school board level.
Now, these books were found in libraries in Edmonton and Calgary after parents complained to the schools. What kind of graphic content are we talking about here?
Well, we're talking about the kind of graphic content that I assume you won't even be able to show on your family program here, or if you do, it will be heavily edited. And we should note that those blurs, if they are being shown, were not there for the 5-year-olds who could have accessed them in their elementary schools. And so we're talking about very graphic sexual content. We're not talking about diagrams or instructional material. We're talking about illustrations of sexual acts that are 100% not appropriate for children.
Now, I know the Alberta Teachers Association is complaining that the government is targeting the LGBTQ plus community, but the books seem to have content in them like that suggests pedophilia, incest, also suicide ideation. So that should concern both heterosexual and LGBT members of the community.
Absolutely, and some of these themes we're even concerned about even as we get up into older age ranges. Anything that could be reasonably taken to encourage underage sexual activity, reasonably taken or taken by a teenager, which may be a lower level of reasonableness, to encourage underage sexual activity is inappropriate for children of any age, really. But a lot of these materials we're very concerned about at the younger ages, and frankly, we find it offensive, the idea that to promote understanding of marginalized sexual minority communities would require graphic sexual content shown to children. I think that is not going to promote understanding of minority sexual communities at all. And were I a representative of them, would not want that to be claimed of me.
So does anybody review these books before they hit the shelves? And if so, who does the review and gives the thumbs up?
Right. So it is teacher librarians are the main folks who would be doing those sorts of reviews. There always has been a process to challenge these books and everything, but it's been, especially in Calgary and Edmonton, where these books were found in 57 school locations, by the way. Especially in Calgary and Edmonton, it's been very opaque. Parents have not felt that they were really being heard. They don't even know whether the books were removed from the shelves or not. They go back to find them again, that kind of thing. And it is important to note that these teacher librarians are stretched. The Alberta Teachers Association is saying that it's because there's not enough funding from the provincial government. Of course, that funding has only gone up and up and up. Overall, the overall funding has only gone up and up and up. It's really the decisions being made at the school board level that matter for those sorts of things. So to encourage, you've got the situation where you have one school library or teacher librarian covering multiple schools, which is how one of the ways it gets to 57 schools instead of only a few is because you've got one person with more of an activist bent who wants these books, and it'll end up in multiple schools that way. So if Calgary Board of Education and Edmonton Public School Board would like to prioritize more teacher librarians so that we can have a better conversation between parents and those teacher librarians, rather than some of the frankly just spacewalks of priorities that they set at the moment, that would be welcomed by parents.
Now, we talked about some of the graphic content. We mentioned suicide ideation. We mentioned incest. We mentioned pedophilia. What else have you heard about the content of these questionable books? Mm-hmm.
So, right, a lot of the concern stems from those sorts of things. These very weighty themes that some of the authors of these books say, this is a memoir about me as a teen, but it's not supposed to be for teens or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. It's supposed to be for other adults to read and reflect on how members of this community might have felt when they were growing up and that kind of thing. It's not supposed to be for kids. It's certainly not supposed to be for elementary kids, but even maybe not for kids that are going through puberty and having struggles with suicidal ideation or having struggles with some of the themes in the book may not be appropriate for them as well.
Now, Jeff, there's some good news here, because the Alberta government is actually looking for feedback and to voice their opinion on the issue. They're looking for input about what parents think are appropriate standards for school library collections. Now, parents don't have much time. They have until June 6th to fill out the online survey. We're going to put the link up on the screen for our viewers to watch. What do you think the public response will be?
Well, first of all, I'll warn them that you can click on very graphic images so if you're going to take the survey, don't do it right with your kids over your shoulder. Because you can see some of the images from the books at that survey. It has warnings as well, but I'll warn folks not to plan to do it in front of their kids. And And yes, we expect to see a huge response. We actually emailed out to our supporters that the record-setting response for an Alberta government survey ever was about cell phones in classrooms, and we got 68,000 responses on that one. We expect this one to break that record. Even we think parents are very engaged on this issue and want to see some more rational policies on that. So we're predicting that it'll blow that 68,000 out of the water. And on the first day, 20,000 parents took the survey. So
Wow.
we're well on our way, and we'll be sending out reminders to our parents as well if they missed it on the first day.
So what are the guidelines when it comes to what content is appropriate? Because I understand like these are voluntary guidelines, and this survey could actually be a game changer.
Absolutely, absolutely. Look, I think it does make sense to have more local standards and more local conversation. It's always better when you can have these discussions between teachers and parents, between librarians and parents, between principals and parents when it's necessary, and not have to have everything be a top-down educrats in Edmonton or the Minister of Education making every decision. But clearly something has gone off the rails here, and parents were raising this issue as they were not able to have those simple conversations with the local decision makers. So to have some sort of policy that make sure that those conversations happen and that they matter, that would be great to see.
Now, any changes from this survey, they're not going to affect public libraries because, of course, those are available to adults as well. However, library leaders and teachers unions say that they're worried that this will lead to book bans like they have in the U.S. What are your thoughts, Jeff?
I do find it funny when the accusation comes that this is sort of manufactured, imported from the United States. Yeah, the books themselves were imported from the United States. These are American authors, American books that are being put in classrooms in Alberta, and they are 100% libraries in Alberta, and sometimes classrooms, and they are 100% inappropriate for young children. So, and then the response has been to import the American culture war response of, oh, you're banning books if you don't want kindergartners to have access to very graphic sexual material. So yes, it's being imported, but not by regular parents who just don't want their kids to have access to this material.
Right. Now, have any public school leaders considered what happens when younger children are exposed to sexually explicit material? Like, I mean, like, what is the emotional and psychological impact?
Absolutely. So we know for sure that that for all kids, especially actually when kids are coming up on puberty, to have some of these ideas promoted away from their parents without having to have parental guidance to sort of keep these ideas and these conversations on the rails. We know that that can have a tremendous impact on kids. And it's really one of the other things I wanted to point out is that's why we see this kind of conflict as sort of inevitable when you've got a sort of a one-size-fits-all system making these sort of decisions. That's why we think it's better to have parents be put more in the driver's seat by things like having choice in education so that parents can have more of a say in who their kids' teachers are and what that relationship will be with the school, and put parents back in the driver's seat, including those of us who choose to send our kids to public schools. The competition itself lifts all boats.
Now, just looking at students in school right now, like school-aged children, they seem to be dealing with more complex issues than we were dealing with when you and I attended school, and it's like their brains have been forced to mature faster. So my question to you, and I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this already, but do we want a society where we allow activists to put books in our schools that try to normalize and encourage sexualized behavior in children?
No, of course not. you know, the argument's often raised of some sort of a slippery slope, but the slippery slope runs both directions, if you will. So I think it's actually pretty clear to draw a bright line between keeping graphic sexual material away from young children and broad book bans of anything the government doesn't like, and we'll be the first to speak out against it. As, by the way, we were one of the only organizations, certainly not the Alberta Teachers Association, speaking out about when Peel District School Board in Ontario buried every book in their collection, in their library collection. I think published before 2014 was the cutoff because of outdated themes and that kind of idea. So whichever direction, real book banning or real across the board heavy-handed restriction on what children have a right to access, if that were to ever come, we would be the first to speak out against it. But the slippery slope runs the other direction, I would say more slipperily, if you will, where if we think it's acceptable to share sexualized material with young children, where's the bright line on that? That's of much greater concern to parents.
Now, we're just going to put that link up on the screen right now for people that are watching and want to fill out the survey. Besides filling out the survey, what else can concerned parents do? Like, should we be writing to our MLAs, writing to the Premier, contacting our school board or school trustee, writing to the ATA? Like what else can we do?
Right. I'm not sure writing to the ATA is going to get you a lot of joy, unfortunately. I wish they did listen to teachers to start with, but parents especially. But yes, you can absolutely, I would say, writing to the Ministry of Education and thanking him for this, writing to the Premier, thanking them for the opportunity and encouraging them to follow through on the feedback that they receive from parents. And then, yes, I think it makes sense to go to your school board and ask why was this not already a done deal? Why do we need the province to reach in to these issues? Why isn't this already being handled by you folks who are supposed to have a closer relationship with us than the provincial ministry? And then finally, you can sign up for updates from us at albertaparentsunion.ca. The whole front page is how you sign up to be on our mailing list, and we'll let you know. The thing parents appreciate about us is we're not going to tell you to call your MLA every month. We'll tell you if you call your MLA this month, it might actually make a difference. And folks, busy parents with multiple kids, maybe in multiple schools and all that, and soccer practice and hockey practice and all that, don't have to obsess about politics. Pay us to do that. We'll or don't pay us. It's fine. You don't have to pay us to be on our mailing list, and we'll let you know when the big stuff is coming down the pike.
And very quickly, because we're almost out of time, we should also mention that parents have something in their arsenal, because it's only a few months away, but we have an opportunity to vote in better candidates for our school boards this October. Let's talk about that.
Absolutely. So October 20th, we're having it at the same time as the mayor and council elections. We're having school board elections, and you know, the turnout for school board elections is very low. So if you actually seek out good school board candidates, if you even go out and help them, most good school board candidates don't have volunteers outside their immediate family. So if you even just help them by knocking on doors or handing out leaflets or something like that. But certainly if you seek out the information and vote for better school board candidates, we can absolutely have a better relationship with parents that way as well.
Jeff Park is the Executive Director of the Alberta Parents Union. Jeff, thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks so much.
I'm Naveen Day. On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, thanks for watching.